Hey guys, my name is Big Tina and welcome back to From the Depths, and welcome to the creative mode, because in this episode I'm going to be building my next ship, and this ship is going to be a battleship. It's going to be something nice and big, with lots of big guns. No, I don't want to go overboard with it. In the campaign we have a little over 300,000 materials in store, and so that's what I'm going to set my price at. About 300,000 materials for this, so it's going to be pretty beefy. But I don't think it's going to go overboard. But I do need to make something that's pretty good. So far we've been making designs that are decent enough, and, you know, I think look pretty good. But now that we've knocked out the Deep Water Guard and the Onyx Watch, well, we kind of need to ramp up our design efficiency. Because the White Flares are next, and they're a lot tougher than anyone we've encountered before. So what I'm thinking is a pretty good sized ship. It's not going to be super fast because I like our design sort of scheme or theme that we've got going on right now, which is to make it kind of big, kind of wide, so there's lots of space for space armor and that sort of thing. But I will try to make it maybe a little sleeker than the ships I've made so far, because I don't think... Well, I think there are many words to describe the things we've made so far, and I don't think sleek is one of those words. Now, what I am going to do is I am going to make this a time-lapse video. Like with the building of the Rock, I will do time-lapse of the more interesting building parts, and then I'll come back in every now and again to talk about something. And then I'll just cut out the boring interior gubbins stuff. Because that doesn't really, you know, that would just be me crammed inside the lower decks somewhere. So what I'm thinking is to have kind of a big front of the ship, big prow, and then a little ways back have maybe like a 2-barrel 500mm advanced cannon, and then tiered up above that another one of those, and then sort of tiered along the sides I'd like to stack 3 of those grenade launchers from the Owlbear, because I feel like those can be pretty devastating, and just having, you know, a broadside of that would be really good. The middle of the ship, I'm thinking, is not going to house very much, or rather, it's going to house some important stuff buried deep within some armor, but not a whole lot of weapons. I might have some small anti-air guns along the middle here, but I mostly want to keep this free of weapons so that I can have something like a more armored center to keep all the gubbins. And then in the back I'll probably sort of mirror the front, where I have 2 tiers of big cannons with some of those grenade launchers along the sides. And that's going to be this thing's main armament, I do believe. Okay, so I'm going to get to building. I'll probably start with the turret housings, and I'll check back in once I have something to talk about. Okay, so I've got the front of the ship, I think in the shape that I want it in. It is looking a lot like the owlbear, now that I think about it, just because of this sort of rounded front here with the grenade launchers on the front. But rather than sort of coming back in like the owlbear did, I think I am going to keep this width, or most of this width, for most of the rest of the ship. So the reason I'm using lightweight alloy for the deck is for buoyancy. It's strong. It's a lot stronger than wood in terms of durability, so it's not going to be a weak point like the wooden decks of other crafts have been. Although it's not going to be as strong as these reinforced areas. My goal is to have everything on the interior of the ship in its own armored box, so that in addition to having to get through the actual hull of the ship to damage things, the enemy will have to actually tear through these armored boxes. So like these turret boxes are 2 meters of metal armor on the inside of the hull. And obviously I'm going to go back through and I'm going to armor up the interior of the hull as well. Add some metal to it just to give it a little more durability. And I may even replace sort of the outer shell of the hull with metal, and then put some more alloy on the inside, just for a bit more structural integrity. But I do need buoyant materials lining this thing, because this thing is going to be very heavy, and I don't want to have to use propellers to keep it above the water. Now, having a really wide surface area like this is going to help that quite a lot. Just because having all this area on the inside as air, and having lots of surface buoyant material like the alloy will keep this thing afloat fairly well. Now that I'm thinking about it, now that I'm looking at it, I do kind of think it would look good if I brought the width in just a bit. Not too much, not to the extent of the owlbear, but bringing it in just a little bit, and maybe even fanning it out again on the back to have this sort of setup again. But my goal is to have this thing have a whole bunch of these little grenade launchers all across it that can just do a lot of reliable sustained DPS, and then have 4 of these main guns, which will be quite large, that can do kind of the heavy damage of the ship. So that's my goal. That's where I am right now. I'm going to keep working on this. I think what I may do now is just go ahead, build the rest of the deck so that I know the area that I'm working with, and then I'll start making, well, I'll start forming up the rest of the weapons, the rest of the housings for things. Yeah, I think it's shaping up, but like with all of my builds, I don't have an exact plan. I'm not looking at a blueprint or anything. I'm just sort of going by an idea in my head, and just kind of seeing how it shapes up as we go. So I'm going to get back to building, and I'll stop talking. Alright, so, I've got a shape here. It's a little like two owl bears just sort of glued together back to back, but I'm not displeased. I think we're going to have lots of space in here for some pretty good turrets, and plenty of internal room for armored compartments for ammo storage, for engines, for things like that. I think I mentioned before that I want to have I want to have shielding on this thing, and I want to have a laser munition defense system on this thing. I want it to be a pretty durable, pretty reliable, hard-hitting craft. Now, we're at 134,000 materials right now, which is pretty well on budget, I'd say, because the hull is essentially done. Obviously, I'm going to have to build a bottom section of it as well. And I am going to replace this, the outer bit of the hull here with metal, and then put a layer of light metal alloy on the inside of that. Or I may actually reverse that. I may do the metal on the inside just because of the way that armor stacks. But we'll see. Yeah, I'll have the propulsion obviously at the back here. I'll wait until I have a set center of mass to do that. I'm probably not going to make this thing go down much lower than this, probably to maybe 3 more blocks, just so that I can have, you know, a pretty wide base. And I think that'll work pretty well for me, and I can put lead on the bottom of it so that I can bring the center of mass down. Other than that, you know, not too much here. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this center space here. Like I said before, I don't really want weapons, or at least I don't want powerful weapons or explosive weapons at this part here, just because I want the center area to be mostly armor and to have most of the important stuff of the ship in it. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do with the deck. But I guess that's always my problem, right? I've had the same issue with both the Rock and the Owlbear. What do I do with empty deck space? And I'm sure I'll find something. If nothing else, I can make a little decoration stuff. Right now, what's at the top of my mind is putting some of the simple autocannons on 2-axis turrets sort of scattered around here as a kind of anti-air system. I might even do simple lasers, although simple lasers have a set range of 500 meters, but that wouldn't be terrible for anti-air. But, yeah, we'll just have to see. Yeah, what I'm going to do now, I think, is go ahead, finish up the back section of the ship, build the bottom section of the ship, armor up the sides a bit, and then I will build the turrets. Yeah, I think that's what I'll do. So I'm going to get back to it, and I'll talk to you guys in a few. starting to look a bit more like a boat now. I'm pleased in that it's turning out to be, I think, in about sort of the same style as my other ships. I really do want a theme with my ships in terms of design, and I feel like this fits them pretty well. It certainly is a lot more intimidating looking, I think, than any of the other ships we've built so far, but it does look like it belongs in the same fleet, which I think is a good thing. For the most part, the hull is done. Off camera, I'm going to go through and just armor up all the sides and such. There's, you know, that's just me placing blocks in places where you can't really see, and so that's not something I want to show on camera or take time with. I think we're just about to the stage, though, where I'd like to start building the turrets. And so we'll build the turrets. I think it's going to be just the same turret across all 4 of these spaces here. Yeah, we'll build the turrets, we'll place them. And then maybe we'll decide what to do with the open spaces of the deck. I think the front and back are actually going to be kind of easy in terms of design choices, just because I could just sort of put some armor plating around. But for this middle section here, still not sure, but, you know, we'll decide. Hey, I might even make, like, a simple cannon broadside. That would be interesting. I don't really use the regular simple cannons very much, but it might be a good fit for this ship. I'm just not sure yet. We'll just have to see. I did make the bottom of the boat out of metal rather than alloy, because they're the same price, alloy and metal, but I want the bottom to be heavier, because I want the center of mass to be lower, because on a boat, the lower the center of mass, the better. And I'll probably end up replacing a good bit of that, the bottom section here, with lead as well, just to bring that center of mass down some more. Don't want to do it too much, because I don't want the boat to sink, obviously, but I do want to have a fairly low center of mass. This thing should be pretty low in the water. I'd like the water line to be about where this metal block is, maybe 1 below it. I don't want the ship to be really jutting up out of the water. And that's just something that I'll need to balance, probably using internal rotor blades. Maybe some air pumps, I don't know. But yeah, so I think what I'll do now is probably something with the hull design on the side here, and then I'll build the turrets. So I'll check back in a little bit. Okay, so I think it's looking pretty good, pretty beefy. Lots of space for both armor and all the stuff that needs to go on the inside. Um, Plenty of guns. I think right now it's lacking a way to hit targets that are moving very fast. So what I may do is have just sort of here on both the front and the back, and on both sides, have a small rapid-fire advanced cannon, and then in the center here, I can just sort of add some extra armor. And it'll be a good place to stick some of the anti-missile laser systems. So what I will do is, off camera, I'm going to do a whole bunch of the internal workings and stuff. I want to get a center of mass so I can start putting down all of the propulsion, all the propellers, things like that. I'll start working on a detection system. Yeah, I'm just going to do a bunch of the more boring stuff off camera. And then the next time I check in, this thing should be pretty ready for a test run. So I will see you guys in a little bit. Okay, wow, that took a long time. But I feel pretty confident about the inner workings of this ship. It has some pretty good detection. I'm just going to auto-adjust it for now. I will come in and, manually adjust that as needed. But for now, I'll just auto-adjust it. I like how it looks. I do. It's... not sure how to describe it. It's just very stable looking, and it definitely moves in a very stable way. And it's not so much like the Owlbear that it's just a direct copy, but it definitely looks like a ship that would be in the same fleet as the Owlbear. The one thing I haven't done yet is I haven't added shields to it, because that's going to take a while. Because, well, there's a lot of this thing to shield. But it does have a very strong engine. It's a huge steam engine that produces quite a lot of energy, and the energy goes directly into batteries, which power electric engines. So this thing is fully electric. Another thing I need to do is I need to set some control blocks to control the steam engine so that's not constantly burning materials at a super high rate, because this thing will really only need that much engine power for its shields and the laser defense system. So that'll be something I adjust as well off camera, but for now I just want to use it to shoot something. So I'm going to spawn in a Marauder. I'm going to see how this thing does. I also need to set, well, I also didn't set any weapon AI weapon controllers. So let me go in and do that. What I was going to say is I also haven't set the firing arcs of the different weapons, which I will definitely need to do so they don't get stuck trying to turn in a way they can't turn, and also so they don't shoot each other. So I'll be back once these things have weapon controllers. Okay, now all the guns have weapon controllers. There are lots of little tweaks I'll probably need to make to these guns, especially the main cannons here. I'm almost certainly going to need to reduce their fire rate just so that they have a reliable continuous fire rate rather than one giant burst of damage. Now, I don't think this thing is going to have a problem with recoil just because of how wide it is and how stable it is. But these are very big cannons that are probably going to fire very fast, so that may be an issue. Let's just let's spawn in a Marauder. Alright, yep, good start, good start. That is a lot of DACA. I do believe the Marauder is just sort of disintegrating now. Whole lot of firepower there, which is exactly what I want to see. Tons and tons of those mortar shells, but yeah, you can see there that those turrets, the main cannons, fired in one giant burst, when what I'm going to want from them is more of a sustained fire rate, probably at a rate of probably around 100 shots per minute. I bet it can sustain that. If not, then I can drop it by, in increments until I get a fire rate that can be sustained. But that was a lot of firepower. Thankfully, these cannons can load quite a lot of shells. Looks like they can load well over 80, even over 90, which is really good for a 4-meter shell. So very happy with that. Yeah, let's watch it blow up something else too. Let's actually spawn in an airship and see how it does. Let's go ahead and spawn in the Moray. I feel like the Moray was a pretty scary ship. The mortar's firing against it, and here come the main cannons. Now, this also has a very good laser defense system, so those cram shells should not come anywhere close. Yeah, like I said, I am going to have to tweak the detection system. I'm just using the default settings for now because I am almost out of time, and I want to, shoot something. Yeah, I'm going to make the detection system just a little more sensitive. You can see here that it's, it's trying to predict a path that this thing's going to take when it's not taking any predictable motion. Let's see. I didn't focus on those lasers. I want to see how the anti-munition defense system works. Yeah, those are some pretty big cram shells, and a couple of hits there. That may just be, honestly, that I need to add more of the munition defense lasers to the front rather than strengthening the laser. The laser is pretty strong, but it's not so strong that it's going to just completely destroy my energy supply. Now, alright, I can already see a problem here. And that is when this thing fires up, there's so much recoil from these giant guns that it's actually pushing the ship into the water. Which is something that I can deal with pretty easily, because this thing already has a system of air pumps on the inside that are programmed to go up and down to keep it pretty low in the water. I think right now their default is at 50% air. So what I could do is I could just set it to where if the altitude gets below a certain point, then the air pumps will turn on to high gear. And so it'll keep the thing above the water, even when all the guns are firing upwards. Pretty pleased with the amount of firepower this thing could dish out even against airships. That was pretty quick for an airship that has a price of 156,000 materials. And here comes the big cannon burst again. Loving the damage and the muzzle velocity and the accuracy of those cannons. Like I said, I am going to reduce their fire rate so that... Oh yeah, wow, look at that. When firing directly up, it just plunges the ship into the water. Other than that, I don't think the ship is going to have any problems with roll. It doesn't have any roll control at the moment, and it just stabilizes itself really, really easily. Yeah, I think limiting the rate of fire will be good too, just because of the ammo. You can see this thing carries quite a lot of ammo. There are two very large, very well-armored ammo caches with it, like deep within this ship. And it carries almost 50,000 ammo, which is a good bit. But just, these are giant shells that take a ton of ammo to fill up. Looking at it now, looks like I'll probably need to make the barrels a little longer, because it's got 0.6 degree shell inaccuracy, which isn't great. We probably want to get that below 0.4 if we can, which we can. I'll just need to probably add another 4 meters to each of the barrels. That's an easy fix. So yeah, let's shoot one more thing, and then I'll go ahead and call the episode. And in the next episode, I will have tweaked this thing a good bit. I'll have added shields, and we'll start fighting the white flares, or we might be wrapping up the Onyx Watch, depending on how much time I have, because I still haven't done that off camera. This build has taken quite a bit. So yeah, what are we going to spawn in? How about, now I know I'm kind of breaking my rule here because we never fought a crossbones in the campaign, but we've also already defeated the Deepwater Guard, so I don't feel too bad. Now, I'm a little worried about this just because we don't have shielding, and I feel like that's gonna be rough. And yeah, shell accuracy, I can make that a good bit better through making the barrels longer. But its muzzle velocity is really, really good, we're just knocking the crap out of this this Crossbones ship. The Crossbones is, at about 220,000 materials, is a pretty scary ship, honestly. I have fought this one in the past, and it's a monster. So pretty happy with just how much damage this ship can dish out. Yeah, we're hitting it pretty hard. Now, this thing still is not going to be great at fighting really fast-moving airships. It's going to have a hard time with that, just by its nature. And as a battleship, I feel like that's fair. I feel like that's a fair weakness to have, which does mean that I'm going to need to build another ship of some kind that can fight fast movers. And that will probably be a much smaller build, and probably one that I do off camera. Maybe I'll just build a small destroyer or a light cruiser or something that can just sort of, you know, provide an escort for ships like this. But yeah, lots of firepower. Very happy with the amount of damage this thing can dish out. The shells, first, someone mentioned in the comments that I should try HESH shells for the grenade launchers, and I did. I gave it a shot, and I found that these shells are just a little too small for HESH to be that effective. It just was not doing the same amount of damage that just a straight-up high explosive shell does. Now, the main cannons on this thing right now are using combo frag and high explosive shells with inertial fuses, which is something that at a very high gauge I've had a lot of success with in the past. But it's always something that I can change in the future if I need to. Yeah, you can see, because I haven't set the firing arcs of these cannons, they're trying to turn past each other, which they just can't do. Oof, that is just a beefy volley of fire, though. It's always tempting to leave it to where they do fire and burst like that, because that does dish out just an insane amount of damage. But it's just more reliable if I can get a more sustainable rate of fire. But yeah, this is without shields. Doesn't look like we really took any damage. I have not added repair bots to this ship either, which is something I'll need to do. Probably also what I'll do is I'll add some passive sonar detectors to the bottom so that its laser munition defense system can also shoot down torpedoes, which would be lovely. Other than that, pretty happy with it. So I'm going to go and call the episode here. In the next episode, you'll see this thing pretty heavily tweaked and improved, just with things that I see wrong with it already, and we'll get back into the campaign. So thank you guys so much for watching. Sorry about the delay on this episode. This episode has taken me a couple of days to put together, just because it's taken me a while to build this ship. It is a very large ship, closer to 400,000 than 300,000, unfortunately. I went well over budget this time, but I don't think that's going to be a problem because we have that in the campaign, and we won't have to wait around for it. But yeah, it is over 50,000 volume, which is a big ship. It's a very big ship. It used to be in this game that you couldn't even bring more than 50,000 blocks into a battle. Thankfully now that's been removed. There is no limit to it. But this is one of those vehicles that I'm probably just going to have one of in the campaign, because it is a very hardy, very expensive, very powerful ship. And I'll probably be naming it before the next episode too. Actually, I'll probably name it just when I put the video up, which is when I normally name these things anyway. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.